Hello, everyone. This is Mrs. Nelson, and I'm going to read you another story for the book of the month. And this book has to do with the topic of empathy. And the name of the story is called The Name Jar, and it's by Yangsook Choi. And it is one of my favorites. I really like this story. I hope you do too. So here's kind of some pictures on the inside. The Name Jar. Through the school bus, Yoon Hai looked out at the strange buildings and houses on the way to her new school. It was her very first day, and she was both nervous and excited. She fingered the little block of wood in her pocket and remembered leaving her grandmother at the airport in Korea. Her grandmother had wiped away Yoon Hai's tears and handed her an ink pad and a small red satin pouch. "Your name is inside," she had said. "My name?" Yoon Hai had asked. Again, she took out the red pouch to look at the wooden block with her name carved in it. As she ran her fingers along the grooves and ridges of the Korean characters, she pictured her grandmother's smile. "Is that thing for show and tell?" a boy asked Yoon Hai, surprising her. Yoon Hai looked up as more kids leaned over. "No, it's mine," Yoon Hai answered, quickly putting the pouch back into her pocket. "Are you new here? What's your name?" a girl asked. "Yoon Hai," said Yoon Hai. "Une?" the girl asked, scrunching up her face. Une, some kids chanted. No, Yoon Hai replied. "It's spelled Unhei. It's pronounced Yoon Hai." "Oh, you hey?" the boy asked, like, "Hey, you hey?" Just then, the bus pulled up to school and the doors opened, and Yoon Hai hurried to get off. "You hey, bye-bye," the kids yelled as she left. Yoon Hai felt herself blush. Yoon Hai stood in the doorway of her new and noisy classroom. She was relieved that the kids on the bus had gone to other rooms, but her face still felt hot. "Aren't you going in?" the curly-haired boy with lots of dots on his face asked. "You're the new girl, right?" he asked cheerfully. Yoon Hai nodded, and before she could walk away, the boy took her hand and pulled her through the door. "Here's the new girl," he announced so loudly that the teacher, Mr. Cockatoos, almost dropped his glasses. Mr. Cockatoos thanked him and greeted Yoon Hai. "Please welcome our newest student," he said to the class. "She and her family just arrived from Korea last week." Yoon Hai smiled broadly and tried not to show her nervousness. "What's your name?" someone shouted. Yoon Hai pictured the kids on the bus. I haven't picked one yet," she told the class. "I'll let you know by next week." As Mr. Cockatoos showed her to her desk, she felt many round and curious eyes on her. "Why doesn't she have a name?" she heard someone whisper. "Maybe she robbed a bank in Korea and needs a new identity," a boy replied. On the bus home, nobody teased her, but Yoon Hai kept thinking about her name. "How was school, Yoon Hai?" the mother asked when she walked in. "Did you understand the teacher?" Yoon Hai simply nodded. She unpacked her school bag, set the red pouch by a photograph of her grandmother. "I'm glad that you are learning English well," her mother said. "You must study hard, behave nicely, and get good grades to show that you're a good Korean." "I will," replied Yoon Hai, but I think I would like my own American name," she said quickly. Her mother looked at her with surprise. "Why? Yoon Hai is a beautiful name. Your grandma and I went to a name master for it." "But it's so hard to pronounce," Yoon Hai complained. "I don't want to be different from all the American kids." "You are different," Yoon Hai, her mother said. "That's a good thing." Yoon Hai just wrinkled her nose. Later that day, Yoon-hai and her mother went grocery shopping in her new neighborhood. They passed Fettel's Falafel, Tony's Pizza, Dot's Deli. A big graffiti-painted garbage truck roared like a lion as it took off down the street. Nothing sounded or looked familiar until they got to Kim's Market. The sign was in both English and Korean. Her mother picked up cabbage to make kimchi, a Korean-style spicy pickled cabbage, and other vegetables and meat. She also found some seaweed, Eun-hai's favorite, for soup. It made Yoon-hai smile. Just because we've moved to America, her mother said, doesn't mean we stop eating Korean food. So here are some pictures of the market and all of the stores. There's Kim's Market, where they went shopping. At the checkout counter, a friendly man smiled at Yoon-hai. Helping your mother with the shopping, he asked. Yoon-hai nodded. I'm Mr. Kim, he said. What's your name? Yoon-hai, she answered. Ah, what a beautiful name, he said. Doesn't it mean grace? Yoon-hai nodded. My mother and grandmother went to a name master for it, she told him. A graceful name for a graceful girl, Mr. Kim said as he put their groceries into bags. Welcome to the neighborhood, Yoon-hai. That evening, Yoon-hai stood in front of the bathroom mirror. Hi, my name is Amanda, she said cheerfully. Then she wrinkled her nose. Hi, my name is Laura. Maybe not. Her smile turned down. Nothing sounded right. Nothing felt right. I don't think American kids will like me, she worried, and she began to brush her teeth. Ha he, mama nu, shu shai, she said to the mirror, with her mouth full of toothpaste. The next morning, when Eun-hai arrived at school, she found a glass jar on her desk, like this. So a glass jar. And in it were pieces of paper. Yoon-hai took out one and read it out loud. Daisy. That's my baby sister's nickname, but she said you could use it if you want, said Cindy, who sat next to her. Yoon-hai took out the rest of the paper. Tamala, she read. I got that one from a storybook, said Nate. She was a smart and brave character. Yoon-hai nodded and unfolded another piece. Wednesday? Yeah, she came here on Wednesday, said Ralph. Thank you for your help. A smile spread over Yoon-hai's face. Ralph quickly said, We'll put more names in it. You can pick whatever you like, or pick them all, and you'll have the longest name in history. At 3 o'clock, the bell rang for the end of the school day. Yoon-hai looked out the window and saw it was sprinkling. It's the same rain, she thought, but in a different place. She watched other kids leaving in groups. Hey, a familiar voice called out to her. Yoon-hai turned around to see the curly-haired boy again. I'm Joey, and you? Don't you have any name? Yoon-hai thought for a moment. Well, I can show you, she said, and she took out the small red pouch, and she pressed the wooden block on the ink pad and then stamped it on a piece of paper. This is my name stamp. My grandma gave it to me. In Korea, I can use it as a signature when I open a bank account or write a letter. And whenever I miss my grandma, I use it to fill a piece of paper. You want to try it? She offered the stamp to Joey, and he carefully inked the stamp and pressed it hard on the paper. The red characters gleamed against the whiteness. Wow, that's beautiful, Joey said. Can I keep the paper? Sure, said Yoon-hai. And the two of them shared her umbrella as they walked to the school bus. So there's a picture of it up close. There's her name in Korean. Every day the jar got fuller and fuller. So every day she came in, there were more names in the jar. Yoon-hai read them all, and she found new names like Miranda, Stella, Avery. They sounded interesting. I hope you choose the name I put in, Marco said. I put in 3 more, Madison, Park, and Lex. They're my favorite street names. Maybe you should close your eyes and draw a name, Rosie suggested. Ralph frowned. Well, that's just silly. What if she doesn't like the name she draws? Well, we didn't get to choose our names when we were born, did we? Rosie argued. Everyone thought about it. When Yoon-hai came home from school that day, her little brother ran to give her a letter. It was from her grandma. She opened it quickly. It said, "Dear my Yoon-hai, I hope you are enjoying your new school and your new friends. Be sure to help your mother and your little brother. Here the moon is up, but there the sun is up. No matter how far apart we are, no matter how different in America it is from Korea, you'll always be my Yoon-hai. Your grandma forever." Yoon-hai took out her wooden stamp and filled a paper with it. She thought for a long time in front of the bathroom mirror. Here's a picture of her brother with the mail, and there's a picture of the letter from her grandma. On Saturday, Yoon-hai walked to Mr. Kim's store. Mr. Kim was helping a customer, but he looked up and greeted her. "Hi, Yoon-hai." "Hello, Mr. Kim," Yoon-hai replied. She felt as if she were back in her old neighborhood in Korea. "Hey," said the customer, turning around. It was Joey. "Your name is Eun-hee?" he asked her with his eyes wide open. Yoon-hai looked quickly at Mr. Kim, then turned to Joey. She nodded slowly. "Yes, it's pronounced Yoon-hai." "And it means grace," Mr. Kim added. "Yoon-hai." Joey said it slowly, this time perfectly. It made Yoon-hai smile. "I'll have it ready for you tomorrow," said Mr. Kim to Joey. "Thank you, Mr. Kim. See you Monday, Yoon-hai," Joey said. He left before she could ask him why he was in the store. On Monday, Yoon-hai came to class early to look at the names one last time. So she looks in the jar, all the choices. But the jar wasn't on her desk. Instead, there was just a single piece of paper. A paper with her name on it. Yoon-hai slipped it into her pocket. "Where's the name jar?" Ralph asked as soon as he saw it was gone. "I don't know," Yoon-hai said. "It wasn't on Mr. Cockatoo's desk or on any other desk. And it wasn't on the counters or any of the shelves." As the other kids arrived, they helped look. Soon Mr. Cockatoos came in and Ralph shouted at him, "The name jar is gone! The jar with all the names in it." "Gone?" Mr. Cockatoos replied. With a look of concern, he asked, "Yoon-hai, did you get a chance to read all the names first?" Yoon-hai nodded. She took a breath. "I'm ready to introduce myself," she said. Yoon-hai wrote her name in both English and Korean on the chalkboard. "I like the beautiful names and the funny names that you guys thought of for me. But I realized that I liked my name the best." "So I chose it again. Korean names mean something, and Yoon-hai means grace." "Grace, grace, in-hai," replied Ralph. Everyone tried to say it. "Un-hai, Yoon-hai, Un-hai." Yoon-hai said her name again, slowly and clearly, and soon the kids began to say it better. Even Mr. Cockatoos. They replied by applauding Yoon-hai's choice. "It was a name after a flower," Rosie whispered to Yoon-hai. "Lots of American names have meanings too," Mr. Cockatoos reminded everyone. When the class was dismissed, Yoon-hai heard her new friends say goodbye to her. "Bye, Yoon-hai. See you tomorrow." "Goodbye, Yoon-hai." Yoon-hai said goodbye and then looked around for Joey, but he was already gone. "Yoon-hai, Yoon-hai, come downstairs," Mother called up to her. "Your friend is here." Yoon-hai rushed down to see who she meant. There stood Joey, and in his arms was the name jar. "Where'd you find it?" asked Yoon-hai breathlessly. Joey looked embarrassed. Well, I took it, but only because I wanted you to keep your own name. And you did. He reached in and pulled out the names. Do you want to keep them? He asked. Thank you. I'll keep them as a souvenir, Yunhai said happily. She pulled out the pieces of paper from her pocket. Do you want this back? Joey grinned. You can keep it. I'll return the name jar to class. Maybe you could put some Korean nicknames in it for us. Names with good meanings. I could do that, agreed Yunhai. I've already got a Korean nickname, Joey said. Mr. Kim helped me choose it. Carefully, he pulled a small silver felt pouch from his pocket, and then he took out a dark wooden stamp with a beautiful Korean character carved sharply into it. He pressed it on the ink pad and then on the piece of paper next to her name. Chinku, read Yunhai. That means friend. Chinku smiled back. So there are their name stamps side by side, Yunhai and Chinku. I love the story. It's such a good ending. And I love that she chose her name that her grandma and her mother had picked for her. And it means grace. And I think that's a great name to have. I hope you enjoyed the book and have a great day.